Hi everyone, I'm Rahim Moosa, and this is Reflections to Rise. If you're interested in growth, leadership, and resilience, then you're in the right place. You'll hear from unique and unconventional leaders who've risen, sometimes through taking bold risks, sometimes through quiet acts of leadership, and often behind the scenes. Their stories will give you insights to inspire you on your own journey too. Join me now on Reflections to Rise. Welcome to Reflections to Rise. Today, it's my honor and privilege to host Michelle Mama, award-winning documentary filmmaker, factual producer, director, and founder of Gay Agenda. Michelle has been recognized with numerous awards and nominations, and executive producing Canada's Drag Race to directing 2 Governor General Award films, winning Canadian Screen Awards, nominations at the Gemini Awards, the Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television, and globally at film festivals ranging from LA to Baghdad to Mexico. This just scratches the surface of her accomplishments. She was also inducted in Toronto Life magazine's top 50 most influential list for changing the world as we know it, alongside such diverse inductees such as NBA player Scotty Barnes and Drake. Michelle, thank you so much for making the time to be here on Reflections to Rise. And I'm so excited but honored and feel privileged to have you as a guest.
The honor is mine, and thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
And with that said, if we were to go back in time, and we were talking a bit about this beforehand, but from the past, previous Michelle prior to the filmmaker and documentary, award-winning documentary, by the way, film producer and director, tell me about who Michelle was prior to the Michelle today.
I was a really nerdy kid, and I watched a lot of television because I had a mom who worked. And funnily enough, I was already editing at a very young age. I had an old Betamax machine in the basement which was my lair, and I would watch, my shows, Twin Peaks, Moonlighting, China Beach. Those were my 3 favorites when I was a little dude. And I would also watch much music. I was obsessed with videos and interviews, and I kept a sheet of paper and time coded where the interviews were on the tape. It was an old Betamax machine. And I found that piece of paper recently, and I was like, oh my God, like I was doing editing. I was time coding interviews at like the age of 10. So I've always been deeply obsessed with media representation. I'm still deeply obsessed with magazines, interviews, pop culture, art, always. But as a brown kid who grew up, at a time where brown kids were still very strange in this very white society, I think, speaking of resiliency, I think being an outsider, many concentric circles of outsider. I was a girl, which you're already an outsider to the mainstream society. That's part 1. But that's nothing compared to being the child of an immigrant whose parents speak a different language at home. Definitely an oddball, nascently queer, but didn't understand that yet. Just an outsider. And then furthermore, even though I'm like part of a South Asian diaspora, I'm Zoroastrian and Parsi, which is an almost extinct group of people. So even within the South Asian community, I'm an outsider. So I think that lens of being an outsider and always seeing the world from the other side of the glass has made me a really good observer of human behavior, of humanity in general. And I think perhaps it's what it's given me this superpower, the ability to connect with and interview people like as a documentarian
Mm-hmm.
and really get inside them, because I'm never confronted with somebody who I don't feel empathy for, if that makes sense. Like I know
Yes,
what it feels
yes.
like to be on the outside, to be a weirdo, to feel like a reject and all the other things. So
Mm.
I'm never approaching somebody with a sense of superiority or hierarchy. I always meet them where they're at.
Mm.
And I think that's because of that experience of always being outside, on the outside looking in.
Interesting. So it sounds like being on the outside, it was within you from that point in time growing up, being an observer,
I
I'm
think
hearing?
so. I think so. I think I'm always the person at the party who's watching.
Mm.
And people, I've, led a really fun life and done a lot of things and had a lot of good times. And I've always been in the room at the great parties and at the whatever, but I'm never really like the center of attention. I'm always the one watching.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm always in the room, and I have incredible friends, and I have an incredible life, but, um, I always find watching human behavior and other people so interesting. I'm always more interested in what someone else has to tell me, when I'm catching up with them, than me talking about myself. Like I'm just endlessly curious. I think an endless curiosity
Mm.
is like the baseline for anybody who's a storyteller,
Mm.
because you're constantly extracting and seeing and identifying incredible stories. Like, oh my God, that's such a cool story, or that's so interesting. Because I have an endless curiosity about the world and about all of us in it.
What influenced you? Because I hear the Betamax too, right? So there was an element of technicality too. Being an observer on watching the shows on Much Music, or time coding and time stamping. Where did that all come from?
I don't know. I think people are just born with certain proclivities. I would be the kid who was always reading in my bed way past bedtime with a flashlight. Like I guess I was just thirsty, just wanted to drink up everything in the world and learn everything and be everywhere. I always wanted to be traveling. I always wanted to be elsewhere and discovering and learning. I'm never happier than when you drop me in a new city and I can just wander around and explore,
Interesting.
Yeah.
So almost like an endless curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The minute you stop being curious, I think it sort of degrades your humanity. I think that if you think you know it all, that's a big red flag, because nobody knows it all. You got to keep learning and meeting people and mixing with the general populace, and there's, it's a cliche, but everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And like some of the most incredible stories I've heard talking to somebody at a diner in New York at the next table, or, there's also like, I love synchronicities. I love serendipity. I love, that sliding doors thing where if it had been 5 minutes before or 5 minutes after, we wouldn't have met. Like,
yes,
there's just so much magic still left in the world. That we can only really identify in those moments, I think.
Interesting. How much of that is really tied to your when we talk self? We talk about self, and I heard you say, okay, layers of identity. South Asian, not feeling like you were able to fit in even there, perhaps?
Right. So the Parsis,
Yeah.
this is, I'm going to go on a whole tangent, but it's important. We are the first monotheistic religion in the world, ancient Persians. And at the time, it was ancient Persia. It was King Darius, Xerxes, Cyrus, but it wasn't the film 300. It was, it was very different than that. And, we were, known for sort of being the seat of democracy. Cyrus's cylinder, the Jewish people really sort of like, still to this day built statues to King Cyrus because he was the one who freed the Jews. Like it was all about democracy and practicing your own religion and all that stuff. But anyway, I digress as usual. So essentially the Zoroastrian religion was the dominant religion. until Islam came along. And what happened was Islam kind of quickly moved through that whole part of the world. And essentially, it was convert or die, right? I mean, that was, we're taking over. So it's Islam is the law of the land. And all these, Zoroastrian believers were converted. But a small group of merchants who had access to boats decided, you know what? We're going to get the F out of here and try to save our religion, essentially. Yes. So like the original boat people, they got on their boats and they fled and they landed in India and they arrived in Gujarat.
I see.
And the story goes, the myth, the story, the legend, our emissary met with the Raj and was told, we can't accommodate you. We can't fit you in our land. We have, and allegedly he clapped his hands and a golden goblet appeared. And in the goblet, it was full of milk. And he said, this is my land. And where are you going to fit in this land? And then our guy, because he was smart, poured some sugar in the milk and stirred it and said, we will assimilate and make it sweeter. Okay, fine. You can come in, but you have to speak the Indian languages, wear Indian clothes, assimilate into our society to that degree where, you look and feel like us, but you're not allowed to intermarry with the Indian population.
Oh, really? So
we made the deal.
Okay.
And we started a little community, and the community grew and grew and grew. And, by some miracle and hard work, the Parsi community in India flourished over time. I mean, flourished meaning did really well as kind of industrialists. We were always Parsis are always made fun of because we like scotch. We like a laugh and a good time and a party. We love to eat dansak. We're very like life of the party kind of folks. But we were also like your accountants, your lawyers, kind of almost like they used to joke that we were the Jews of India, small population, but mighty. And went on to really have outsized influence on like Mumbai, the building of Mumbai. Like if you go to Mumbai now, you'll see the Ashofar, which is this symbol. You'll see it on all these porticos all over the buildings. It's because we, out of respect for our hosts, would always funnel money back into India, building things, building hospitals, building schools, giving back. Very similar in approach to the Ismaili community,
yes,
but maybe not as organized, just a little bit more willy-nilly. And as a result, the Parsis did really well. They did really well under British rule because we were no threat to the Brits. There was barely any of us. And as a result, we got sort of appointed to ambassadorial positions and diplomatic positions. I have lots of uncles who were, part of that tradition and, diplomats and ambassadors and stuff like that. But, the Parsi community, it's, if you don't know Parsis or if you're not South Asian, you probably have never heard of them. But the irony is, that, one of the biggest rock stars that ever lived, this is where my interests intersect. Freddie Mercury was one. And so that's a huge point of pride for me. And it, my Freddie Mercury project is gestating. I will make a film one day about Freddie and Parsis and queerness. It's still percolating. But it's very meaningful that the biggest rock star in the world was from my teeny tiny little, almost extinct community. They say we'll be gone in 100 years. Because so many of us have immigrated out of South Asia, which was already not our homeland, and gone all over the world. Of course, kids go for education and they don't come back. So now we have this diaspora. We've only got 70,000 of us in the world.
Really?
And now we're spread out all over the world. So the chances of us meeting and mating are very slim. So the projections are in about 100 years, we won't have any more sort of both parents, Parsi, Zoroastrian kids anymore. It just won't, there's just like a demographic, it's not going to work. So I'm kind of also sort of the last of a dying breed of people. and I'm queer and I didn't have kids. So it's an interesting, I didn't really help the extinction, but it's an interesting perspective. It's an interesting platform from which to stand and view the world, and sort of with all of those identities and lenses in front of it.
Well, it's certainly revealing, because I wasn't aware that there were only 70,000. If that is a true number globally, and one of the early stages of the world, the foundations of many faiths, traditions, and cultures originating from the community. We were talking about you being an observer, right? So being behind the scenes. And often being a producer or director means that you're behind the scenes. What was the aha moment or the inspiration to move into documentary production, to say, I want to tell stories like this? And I'll give you an example. 21 Days to Nawroz.
Yeah, that was a big turning point for me. 21 Days to Nawroz was a documentary that I did. What a time. I was working like all immigrant kids do, or at least I did. My dad said, the most important thing is to be working. So I would take, and I'm not a Nepo baby. I didn't have any contacts in the industry when I started. So, my first job was answering phones, and then it happened to be at a TV company. So I ended up working in TV as a coordinator, and then a producer, and then in development. And that just ended up being my track. It decided for me that I guess I'm going into television. And it was at the time where HGTV, Food Network were on the rise. So I ended up doing a lot of restaurant makeover, renovate my wardrobe, all those shows. I did all those shows, baking shows, the Donut Showdown, like all these kind of shows, which it was like a boot camp, and I learned so much. Practically speaking, about what I do and how to do it. But their passion for the subject matter wasn't necessarily there. And then my cousin, it was a family wedding, classic Indian wedding. Everyone had come to Toronto from all over the world. And I had this one cousin who happened to be in town, and she worked in Iraq for a company called Heartland Alliance out of Chicago. And she was working with incredible people on the ground as a human rights lawyer, working in gender-based violence. And I, poor thing, spent the whole wedding just buttonholing her into a conversation about this. And I became obsessed. I said, this is an incredible story. The U.S. is at war with Iraq. This is in 2007, 8. And my cousin is there. And she's doing all this important work with these women. And what is it like to be a woman right now in Iraq? And what is going on? And she was specifically in Kurdistan in the north. So again, I felt a kinship, because the Kurds, another group of vaguely South Asian beige people who nobody knows anything about.
Yes.
The Kurdish people were almost eliminated by genocide by Saddam Hussein. So, I was learning all this stuff and like, whoa. And, the folly of youth and the craziness. I was kind of an MVP at this company, and I knew they didn't want to lose me. So I said to them, I got to go make this film. It's burning my bones. Like, I got to go. And they're like, no, we need you this year to finish these 4 shows.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'll make you a deal. Let me go for 1 month. And then I will put it on the shelf. I'll finish the 4 shows, and I will edit it and finish it in the fall and winter.
Okay.
Because our busy time is always the spring, summer, fall when we shoot TV, because we want it to be evergreen. So we need to shoot when it's not snowing.
Right.
We bought a little camera, a little C300, and a new laptop. It was one of the first laptops that you could sort of put a card into.
Yeah.
Card
the SD slot.
Yeah. And it was me shooting on cards, not on tape, which was scary because, if it's gone, it's gone. So we learned in a gray way, with permission from Heartland Alliance to shoot promotional stuff.
I see.
which was not entirely true. I guess I could say that all these years later.
Yes.
And so my cousin was an amazing sort of co-producer with me. She was on the ground. And I said, listen, when I arrive, I want to meet 10 different women from different walks of life, like a doctor, a lawyer, a whatever, a student, a this, a that. And I really want to meet a female. They have these incredible female fighters.
Oh, okay.
The Kurds are famous for their ferocious female warriors.
I see.
And so we met a bunch of people when I arrived. Now, this is why it's 21 days to Nawroz. I shot the film in 21 days and had to get my ass back home.
I see.
And so I enforced a structure on the film to make it so. So whatever happened in that 21 days, I was going to capture it. If it was nothing, I was going to capture it. If it was something, I was going to capture it. But I enforced a timed structure on it because that's what I had to do.
I see.
Plus 21 is a kind of celestial, really good number. You know, brown people are all about numerology.
Yes.
And Nawroz is the new year.
It's auspicious, yes.
Auspicious and celebrated by all kinds of communities, not just Zoroastrians, but everybody. Because when we were agrarian cultures, it was this first day of spring that we were celebrating.
Yeah.
And that was the thing to celebrate.
Yes.
You know, we're going into a new year of abundance and harvest and all this stuff. So I thought, oh, it's nice to end with the new year.
Mm.
You know, it's nice to end on the new year and see what this you know. And so, so we filmed 4 subjects, and I used 3 in the film.
Mm-hmm.
One was a student at the American school.
Mm-hmm.
One was a survivor of the Halabja bombing where Saddam tried to wipe out the Kurds. And the third was this incredible feminist
yes.
lawyer, Raza, and she had a daughter, and she was working on all these human rights cases. She was a contact of my cousin's, and she was kind of like, this stinks, and I've got a young girl. And seeing all these horrible stories about, you know, brothers burning their sisters to death from an honor killing. I mean, you know, and she was a pretty modern thinking woman living in this sort of medieval place, thinking like, is this what I want for my daughter? And so that was an interesting story to follow because, you know, we're trying to like sort of see where she landed on that. She ultimately said she was going to move to Canada, then she didn't, but we had got what we got in our 21 days. Mm-hmm. And all of our 3 characters had a little arc. And the 4th character was this amazing artist. But I'm rambling, but I'll get to the end here. When we got in the edit, I was trying to make sense of these 4 stories and trying to weave them together. And it just wasn't working. And this happens sometimes, and you'll hear people talk about it in film and TV, where you have like an aha moment or a holy moment.
Yes.
And the holy moment was I was sitting in the edit suite, just like ripping my hair out, so frustrated. And I couldn't figure out what is this structure here? Like, we're just telling 4 stories and I don't get it. And then it hit me that I had a past, present, future architecture already built in. The student was the future, the lawyer was the present, and the survivor was the past.
Oh, wow.
And this artist who, I mean, I'm always going to be drawn to artists because I am one. And I loved her work, and she was absolutely wild and crazy and nuts. But that could have been its own short film. Once that penny dropped, it all fell into place. I was like, oh, it's the past, present. And so I literally, like, 25% of what I shot isn't there. But it told me what it needed to be in terms of its shape. And that's how we shaped it. Yeah. So after that, it's like once you get a taste for something meaningful and powerful, I was never the same. Then it was like I would still do those food shows and those whatever, but boy, it was a slog because I had tasted, you know, that sweet fruit of working on something I loved. You're not just working, you know?
Not just working, right? Not just for the external sort of
where
production
time
value.
disappears, where money doesn't matter, where you're in it, you know?
And it's connected to you, I'm hearing.
It's a bliss state. It's a bliss state. The only other time I have that is when I'm writing. Time disappears, you know? It's something that I tell young people when I mentor them is when you're confused, you know, some people have the great good fortune of being good at a lot of things, you know?
Yeah.
There's some kids who they can shoot, they can edit, they can direct, they can, you know, what do I do with my life? And I say, like, when it feels like you're going downstream, effortless. It just, you
it's
go.
just happening.
It's carrying you.
Yes.
That's when you're doing, you pay attention to that because that is close to your path, or that's your path.
And it's incredible that flow state that I heard you mention really is something that we use in leadership.
Oh, is it?
Yes. And it's all about finding that flow. And it's used in sport as well. And,
Yes,
there's
I know
a lot
about
of
it in
those,
sport. I love that. Yeah.
and it's coming into the business world and into the leadership domain around finding your flow. And what I'm hearing is connected to your inner values, who you be, combined with your purpose in the world.
Yeah.
And giving back, I heard, was one of your strongest callings, if you will.
Yeah.
If you had an organized list of your values.
Yeah.
So it's similar in the business world when we're coaching leaders to say, well, what do you aspire to do, but what are you drawn to? And that helps to inform flow when you're in that state. And it sounds like you found it at that moment when I heard the penny dropped. You saw the timeline.
Yeah.
And fast forward to today, how do you navigate now?
There's two ways to look at this. There's the way I look at it, and there's the way somebody who's fiscally responsible will look at it. If you were a fiscally responsible person and intelligent about money and earning money, you would say that was a nice detour, but it wasn't something that I made money on. It didn't get distribution. The production company I worked for didn't know what to do with it, so I just put it up online for free.
You did?
Yeah, 21 days to Nawroz.com, so anybody can watch it from anywhere. And I felt really good about that. A terrible business decision, but it's been watched hundreds and hundreds of times by who knows where, who knows, when they found it, whatever. But, you want your thing to be seen and you want the story to be told. I think it's like getting bitten by a vampire, because once I got a flavor for not just working in TV, but like creating something that meant something to me, like actually creating a thing that I believe was bigger than myself and more important than making cupcakes on TV. I think that was a pivot point. And even though I still spent another 10 years doing all that stuff because I'm not an independently wealthy person, I knew that there was something bigger calling me. I just hadn't figured it out yet. But I was like getting increasingly more dissatisfied with the work that I was very good at and hired over and over again to do. But suddenly it was like all the color kind of drained out of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So it's almost like this epiphany or an awakening, if you will.
And then you're kind of like constantly chasing it again. You're like, oh God, I've got this great job. I'm making great money on this show. I don't give a about it. I wish I was out making a documentary. You know what I mean?
Right.
The documentaries don't pay as well. So this is the thing.
So
you've got the balance of, do you want to do something you love and live lean and mean and really like struggle? Or do you want to get paid really, really well, but not have that creative fulfillment? And it's listen, I don't judge anybody for either decision they make because it's tough out there,
Well, it speaks to your impact, Michelle. I mean, when you think about taking that leap of faith and putting it out there for free, putting the documentary for free, bringing out stories of women who had already gone through such horrendous traumatic events and loss, to surface that up and to help others. Where does perhaps that documentary continue to feed you today? Had you not gone down that path,
I would not have known what I was capable of. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I snuck into Iraq in the middle of a war with my lesbian partner and we were terrified, by the way, terrified. Well, there was just absolutely no indication to anybody that this was just my camera person,
Yes.
But even just in the privacy of our own hotel room, I was like, terrified.
Of
they
course.
kill you there, right? So that was all a hell of a lot of bravery. And I really admire that little dude who had the guts and the gumption to do that. It was really a burst of creative energy that I hope, I've had since, but it's like when you get possessed by something like that, you just can't, you have to just keep going and going. Same thing happened recently with my Carol Pope film and with Gay Agenda, my company that I opened.
Yes.
It's just like, there's just no other option. I have to start this company. Was dissatisfied with the leadership that I was coming up against in making all the queer content I was making. I was like the guy they called to do the queer stuff. And so I was a gun for hire. But then there was this layer of sort of production company and middle management that I would have to contend with between me and the client, who's the network or the broadcaster.
I see.
And those people, it was really hard for me to deal with bureaucrats when I was doing something that was so important, which is representing queer youth and trying to tell these stories correctly and accurately and with love and respect. There's nuances to dealing with this community. You have people who are traumatized. You have people who have been rejected. You have people who sometimes have substance abuse issues or weight issues or whatever because of the trauma, because everybody in the queer community is trauma bonded, essentially. We've all been through something. Some are luckier like me. Some are not so lucky. But either way, you're not dealing with, speaking of resiliency, you're dealing with people who have really been through the ringer. There's a sensitivity level that you need to have, and they didn't have it. And I was constantly in these situations that were causing suffering and consternation. And I was just like, what is like, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't work for these people who don't do right by the people who I am trying to take care of and represent. So I started a company, which was crazy because I could be getting paid a lot of money with my experience in CV to run someone's show and sit back and drink a coffee and not do much. I've earned it, right?
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
kind of, I'm like at that executive level now where I could do that. But instead, I'm scrapping it out. I'm trying to get commissions. I'm remortgaging my house. I'm doing all this stuff. And I think similar to when I did that doc, I just don't think there's anything else. I just don't think there's another thing I can do right now. I think this is what I'm meant to do right now.
Yes.
And I'm trying to be kind to myself and say, any new business, you need 5 years. 5 years to get that traction and get yourself going. And
yes.
I had a little bit of early interest. Of course, it's a provocative name, Gay Agenda, and all that was by design. And this year coming up, 26, is going to be when you start to see the projects, like, see the work starting to come out. The Carol Pope film will be the first one with my Gay Agenda logo at the end, which is a big, exciting moment. But I think the number one thing, if I'm being honest, is trying to undo a lot of what has been drilled into us as young people, young South Asian people. Money and success is the most important thing. Money and success is the most important thing. Part of it is, we're immigrants and we're in this country and we need to take care of ourselves and don't screw around, get that money and take care of yourself and buy a house and establish yourself because there's a panic around it.
Sure.
Because we're in a new place,
Yes.
But part of it is just a, old boomer style, it's a way of thinking of the world.
Yes.
And I respect it because, of course, 90% of people follow that path and do a great job and raise great families and do whatever. The fact that I don't have kids was a big factor because I'm taking a huge financial risk.
Yes.
And I'm not risking anybody's comfort but myself and my geriatric dog. As long as I can buy him dog food, I joke. As long as my dog gets his dog food and his meds, we're good. And I don't know. I mean, you're catching me at a really interesting time. I hope we can talk again in a few years and maybe there'll be some huge outsized success and I can go, phew, I was right. But we're right. I'm about to be in that phase where I'm proving myself and I'm curious to see how it goes.
And speaking of, what are you drawing on right now in this moment? Like, you've taken a risk, you've jumped into the deep end, obviously with amazing productions coming out very soon. Gay agenda, purpose driven, helping others. What do you draw upon to keep that resilience in check?
It's a good question, because it's not always easy, especially when, when the world turns. Like we started Gay Agenda, and I decided to use the font that ACT UP used, because ACT UP was an organization that was fighting for AIDS research at a time when, the president of the United States wouldn't even say the word AIDS. The Reagans were horrible. Nancy Reagan let her best friend die rather than talk about AIDS. Her best friend was Rock Hudson. But I thought, when we started this company in 23, I was like, this is great. We're going to, a little clever callback to our ancestors at a time that was a big struggle. And now it's such a strange, the whole world is flipped upside down. And, we're in a time where queer people are suddenly being hounded again, harassed. They're legislating against queer people in the United States. I have a friend with a trans kid in Texas. He's nervous, it's very scary. I've had friends racing to get their passports done because they're trans and they don't want, the F on their passport when they're clearly a man now.
Yes.
There's all kinds of horrible stuff going on. And, one way to look at it is go, wow, timing, bro. Like, maybe you should wrap this up and get back to work, like, working for someone else.
Oh, I see.
But the flip side of it is crisis opportunity.
Yes.
So I'm, not an optimist, but I thought to myself, okay, I went to Content London last December, and they were all like, yeah, doom and gloom, 30% less production green lights overall. But I also was able to go, wow, look at that Australian broadcaster and that Irish broadcaster and that Scottish broadcaster, and they're all English speaking territories, and they're all hungry for queer content. So in some ways, it's like putting myself in opposition to that force of the United States and going, if you don't want my stuff, I'll go sell it over here. Or if America's not making this content, someone's got to.
Yep.
Might as well be us, because Canadians are really good at doing queer and weird.
Yes.
That's what we do best. So I'm trying to look at it that way. I'm trying to convince myself
Yes.
That this is an opportunity. And I think also it really just comes down to, I've been very fortunate in my life. I'm a healthy middle-aged woman. My family's healthy, touch wood.
Yes.
I've suffered the slings and arrows. I've gone through the things, and I'm okay.
Yes.
And so, I think part of it feels like duty also. Like
Duty.
my duty to give back to the South Asian community, to the queer community, to the production community, and sort of stand 10 toes down in a way that other people don't have the opportunity to do, because they have financial restraints, because they have families, because they have to take other people's lives and enrichment into account. For me, it's like I sink or swim, it's me, And I guess I've always had a tiny appetite for risk, maybe not this much, but I think that's it. And I think you have to be a little bit delusional, which I definitely am. Just a tiny bit. Delusion is what is the the fuel that gets you out the door.
Interesting. And so, yeah, I mean, it sounds like, if I were to just as be an observer from the outside and observing your career, the path, these are the defining moments, going back to your coming out, to the representation as Parsi, to being observer and helping others in general, being the draw of that force and that energy for you. Sounds like at the same time being patient with the world, right?
I also think you'll understand this because you're a smiley. I also think it's part of being Parsi. I think it's in our bones.
It's in
to give back and to be charitable. It's a community thing. And Yeah, I think that it's also part of my Parsiness. I will say that gets a little bit buried in all of this, but I do think being a Parsi and
Mm,
having those values
mm.
um, is deeply ingrained in me, and also part of why I'm always out here helping and mentoring and trying to take care of others. I think that's a deeply Parsi thing as well.
How does that inform your work?
Mm. It's very interesting. I have a lot of members of my family who, like, back in Pakistan or India, they run charities. They do a lot of that kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're from a smaller, marginalized community,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, you are imbued with a kind of empathy for the other that if you're part of a mainstream community, you are not. And so for me, having all these layers of being outside, so being a woman, being of vague South Asian heritage that people can't put their finger on, and being queer is a lot. It's a lot to carry, but it's also it's a lot of communities to be a part of. And I think the sort of masala of that, those identities is what makes me uniquely me.
Yes.
And I think for me, I'm always on the lookout when I do my mentoring for young South Asian kids. I often get approached by young queer South Asian kids. I don't know how to tell my mom, et cetera, because I make it a point to be very public and out about my identities, because I think it's really, really important. And I wish someone had done that for me. I remember when I came out to my mom, she was in utter shock and disbelief, which is funny, but in retrospect. But I think it's because the South Asian communities put such an emphasis and importance on femininity. The female deities, the beautiful, carvings, of dancing women on, There's such a premium put on classic femininity. And at the same time, they have an understanding of what a fae or a gay man is, because similarly, in the epics, the Indian epics or whatever, there are these trickster characters, or these sort of characters that you can kind of see, you can read them as queer, but they're always men. So when my mom was confronted with me saying, I'm gay or whatever, she could not compute, because she, in her mind, thought, well, you didn't shave your head. You don't have a tattoo on your face. You know what I mean? You're not driving a motorcycle. I don't understand, because she had no frame of reference. So I think it's really important for someone like me who, presents pretty feminine and walks around the world and quote unquote passes, like I could pass for straight. And I often do. And I have what's called straight passing privilege in that way. I think it's really important to remind people, no, this is what queer looks like too. I mean, it looks like a lot of things, but it also looks like me,
And it's interesting because it sounds like your mom had a preconceived notion of what that, in her mind, her framing of what queer
it was,
and
it's funny. I have gay cousins, boys,
yes,
and so she was very close to them. So it wasn't necessarily that it was a homophobia. Yes. It was more just like a completely blank slate. Like, I don't understand what a queer or what a gay woman is, because they've just never been exposed. You can't blame them.
Yes.
And honestly, I was sort of dating men and women and sort of playing this, well, maybe I shouldn't tell my parents just in case it ends up being a boy. I don't want to disturb them. Then I convinced myself that if I told my mother that I was gay, she was going to die of a heart attack. So I better not tell her, because I don't want that to happen. So I had, and not in a metaphorical way, somehow my defense mechanisms had convinced me that my mother would be ill if I told her. And that kept me from telling her for 10 years.
Really? So
Yeah.
10 years.
I was in the closet for 10 years. And then I finally told my mom, and it took her 2 years to tell my dad. Because that's how it works in my family. You tell mom and then she tells dad.
Yes.
And she needed the time to process. And I really admire her for that. She went and did her research. She read a bunch of stuff. I think she joined some Facebook groups. She sort of had to, she knew that she had to pitch it to Danny Mama. And so she had to really get right with it. And then she got her druthers and told my dad. And, I think he was also shocked and maybe a little sad. But I think in these situations, what they're sad about isn't like, oh, you're gay. They're sad about, they're mourning the version of you that they thought existed. They're mourning the princess wedding they thought you were going to have. They're mourning the beautiful, lagun photo they were going to have on their mantle of you with your big red sari.
Right.
All these fantasies that they had when they looked at you when you were a baby.
Yes.
They're mourning all of that. You can't blame them because that's just the trajectory they've been taught. That's how it goes. And then you get this odd one like me who comes out completely different, and you kind of have to adjust. I think my queerness is a superpower.
Yes.
I believe it to be a blessing and a gift, not something that detracts or takes away from who I am. I think it makes me a much better at what I do for a living. It makes me a better friend. It makes me a better godmother. It makes me a better human, I think, just on the whole. So I have no shame around it. And if I do anything, with my life, it's going to try to help other little South Asian kids who are struggling to realize that it's okay. It's okay. And oftentimes we underestimate our parents. Do I wish I could get those 10 years back and tell my parents sooner? I don't think so.
No.
I think it was really good to have that perspective. I didn't love living a double life. But to be fair, in my downtown life with my friends, people I worked with, school, everybody knew who I was. It was just the barrier was the community, the South Asian community. Because as we all know, it's all about, what will they think?
Yeah.
What will the Parsis think? What will the community think? And there's so much pressure put on that. And I think you have to sort of be brave. And I think my mom was brave. I think my dad's been brave. My family, my brother, I think they've all risen to the occasion. And honestly, I underestimated them. They've been incredible with all my partners, everything I've, since, ever, that was many, many years, it was 30 years ago now. What, how 20 years ago now. And, they've been amazing and, bullish with the community about being amazing with other kids who are sort of struggling and stuff like that. Yeah. My mom is like an advocate now. It's amazing.
After you came out to your mom, right? And then she had to prepare and obviously before going to dad, how did that feel after for you? What changed in your, say, your health or your mental health or physical well-being?
It's funny. It was a weird time before my dad knew, when my mom knew, because we had this secret. But suddenly, it was a very interesting time for me because I was merging my two worlds together. And I had gotten so used to being two different people that, when my mother would ask me, is so-and-so your special friend? That's her way of, I almost would default to lying, because and then I would have to it was actually physical. I had to keep reminding myself, no, she knows now, you can be honest. And, that weird phase lasted until I started dating someone else.
I see.
And that person, the joke is that she was a lawyer and my parents always wanted me to be a lawyer. So the joke is, guess what? I'm dating a lawyer. She's a girl, but she's a lawyer, and my parents loved her. And I'll never forget when she graduated from law school at Queens, my mom came to her graduation at Roy Thompson Hall. And after the graduation, she pulled something out of her purse and gave it to Jess. And it was a set of pearls. And like, you know, brown people and jewelry.
Yeah.
Like
attached.
when you give someone jewelry.
Yeah, it's never going to get.
Right. And it was family. It wasn't something she bought at the Bay. It was like family pearls.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, whoa. Like that was a huge holy moment for me where I was like, oh, like we're good now. Like this is, she's acting like all mothers act when their kids partner graduate from law school, like giving a gift, a meaningful gift. Like I was shook. I was really emotional about it. It was so beautiful and just like natural. Like she didn't consult me about it. She just showed up and it was like, oh, okay. And I think the one thing I would say to anybody who's struggling, who's queer, who's sort of in this journey is, you know, we do a lot of weird things. We date a lot of weird people when we're young. But when that first partner comes along, the first person who you like, you know, want to introduce to your parents, frankly, that's what changes everything. Because with the queer fear, queer fear, it rhymes, that's good. It's mostly about like, my child's life is going to be harder. They're going to suffer. And we have no idea what this looks like. But then I bring a beautiful girl who's smarter than anything, who's going to Queen's and getting her law degree and is at the top firm in Canada. And then it's like, well, you know, maybe this isn't so bad.
Yeah, she's a good catch.
Pretty awesome. And she likes to drink scotch with the dudes and she's funny and sweet and, you know, has big blue eyes and everybody loves her. And so the person is what changes everything. Yes. When you have a person that you can present to them that you love and they see that and they see that, you know, this person doesn't have 3 heads and 2 horns, it changes everything. That's what really changes everything.
It sounds like it parallels to what Rupa and I went through because, you know, her identity with, well, her father as well was not aware of me in being in the picture and me being an Ismaili Muslim, her being a Jain. There was a cultural
See, that's so interesting because the Ismailis and the Jains and the Zoroastrians, we're all weird outsiders.
Right?
I know about you guys and you know about me, but not everybody knows about us.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And it's a similar parallel, but in a different way that, you know, systemically there's, you know, cross-cultural perceptions. And it's not until I met her father, when he met me, then he sort of realized, okay, if anything, thank you for going there about your story and coming out, because it sounds like there are other people who might be watching and hearing us today and thinking about, how do I support, you know, they may be individuals going through an identity shift or trying to fit into the systems that male, female, they, he, she, what does it all mean? And being then another layer of, okay, I'm South Asian or I'm wherever, I'm Caribbean, I'm in this.
It's like your family, your family of origin doesn't have the tools yet to understand what you're going through. But the great part about being queer is that out of necessity, queer people find chosen family. Your friends, your community that you find, that you surround yourself with when you're young and figuring it out, they become a kind of family. And the bonds with queer people's friendship are very, very sacred. You know, like I'm the goddaughter to my best friend's child, you know, like it's not casual, you know, you're taking care of each other in the way that families are meant to take care of each other. And if you're lucky enough to also have a family of origin that you can love and that love you, you're winning. You're winning. Like me, I'm winning. But it takes a long time to get there.
This has been around since time began. And speaking of, yes, the the series that you had produced around gender fluidity.
The Nature of
the
Things
Nature
episode.
of Things episode. You know, it's in nature.
Yeah.
And when you think about the diversity of all of the identity, labeling, and I heard you say that if it's queer content and you have queer people in the room, it's better.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Well, you know, I really do believe that oftentimes what happens with queer folks, as we're now engaging with gay and queer and trans stories in our media and things like that, is sort of the 1.0 way of looking at it was, and I think I said it in that article, like David Attenborough and Penguins, where you're looking at someone from a distance and you're observing them as the other. The way that you shoot it, the questions that you ask when you're directing it, the way that you even conceive of a background, the way that you tell that story is informed by who you are. If you have queer people in the room when you're talking about clownfish changing gender or whatever, and you're talking to a scientist, and I've got a cinematographer that's non-binary, I've got a cinematographer that's a gay man, I've got a queer sound person, and me, we're all like really into this subject. We really want to hear more. And I do a thing that not a lot of directors do because it's kind of crazy, but I work with my crews a lot and I know them very well, where at the end of an interview, I'll ask my cinematographer, do you have any questions? Because this is about our lives too, you know? And some great questions come out of that, you know? And anyway, my point is that when queer people are telling their own stories, you can tell there's a layer of authenticity there. Also, queer people are very funny. We have a gallows humor that it comes from being an oppressed people. So, you know, there's like an archness and a sensibility there that's not as earnest. And, you know, and just a curiosity, you know, just again, a curiosity about the world, because when you're an outsider, even if you're just a regular, degular white person who happens to be queer, you're an outsider. You're looking at the world from the outside. So, you know, it's a different perspective versus, you know, sending a straight white guy in to talk to another straight white guy scientist about queer fish. Doesn't have the same energy.
Yes. You know? And the depth and the level of perspective, right? Yeah. So it's almost like widening the spectrum and not looking at it from, I'm hearing a single point of view.
Yeah.
And you being, again, going back to where we started, the observer is innate in you, regardless of your identity. You've already been an observer of everyone else.
And I think specifically with this science stuff, it was fun because it's really exhausting to constantly talk about identities when you're talking about humans. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Everybody's got an opinion. Yes. It can really wear you down. But when you're talking about like a male seahorse carries a baby, like when you're talking about all this cool stuff that happens in nature, it's really refreshing. It also is delightful because you as a queer person can see yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, representation. It's what we talk about when we tell queer stories on television and in films, but then to also be able to nerd out with science and go, oh my God, this fish is trans. Oh my God, this, you know, like it's so fun.
Yeah.
And it just, it's just another layer of, you know, we're all connected and nothing is as it seems. And the world is not black and white and the world is not binary. Never has been.
It never has been, you know, and it's funny that you say that. Not funny, but it's revealing because I identify that when I took time off to take care of our son and daughter, and me being a dad, you know, Rupa being at work,
right,
and I was at home for a bit, you know, was challenging my own perceptions that there was fear,
fatherhood, masculinity, what will people think, all that stuff.
But I mean, it felt natural to me, to be nurtured. Why
shouldn't it? It's your kids.
Yes.
I hate it when people say, "Oh, my husband's babysitting." What do you mean he's babysitting? It's his kid.
Exactly, right? I mean, we're also, you know, able and equitable and capable of doing things, right?
Totally.
Well, speaking of the Parsi in you and thinking about production, your leadership style, if I may how does it enable others when you're working to open up and share their story with you?
I'm very transparent. That's what I do, is
Mm-hmm.
I disarm people. I disarm people when I interview them. I disarm people when I meet them, and I disarm people when I work with them. The film and TV world is very hierarchical and patriarchal. It was always men, and it was always, almost designed like an army originally. You would have you would have your captain, and then you would have all the soldiers, and they'd all have ranks, and they would all have departments. Very similar. And the film and TV business operates with that kind of efficiency too, like the military. Everything has got to be on time and whatever. So that's what people are used to, and that's kind of how this is how this business started. But I am trying to evolve that, and what I do is treat every single person, from the person who's driving the car to whoever, to the director, to the network executive, exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm.
There's no brown nosing. There's no kissing up. There's no, hitting down. Everybody is equal. To that end. I carry sandbags. When a documentary crew pulls up, it's usually 4 or 5 people in a van full of gear. And, most directors at my age and stage would sit there with their arms crossed, have a coffee, and wait for everyone to set up. I don't do that.
Yeah.
That's part of it's intentional. I'm intentionally modeling a leadership style for these people. And they're shocked often. If they've never worked with me before, they're like, what the hell's going on? They're shocked when I say, hey, do you have any questions after an interview? They're shocked when I'll drive the van because someone's tired. They're shocked when, you know what I mean? And that is by design. It is by design. I think that when people are disarmed and, when we dissolve these hierarchies, and we work within community and with community, magic happens. I've demonstrated it. Yes. I can speak on this because I've done it.
Yes.
Time and time again. We did it with Summer Camp. We did it with Shine True. We did it, with all these shows. We did it with the Carol Pope film. We did it with Fluid. And it's time after time.
Yes.
If you're working with community, about community, in a community, like community, you can't lose.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to convince people in the traditional film and TV world of that, because they like their structures and their hierarchies.
Yeah. And so going back to that point earlier, we were talking about how there's a lot of trauma, and when dealing with these stories, and I'm just using a very general, loose term here to describe the sensitivity around whether it's gender fluidity, coming out, any of these stories, identity. What advice do you have for leaders who are in the corporate sphere that are diluting or being insensitive, in the case where you were explaining earlier? What message do you have for other leaders who might be getting in the way?
Another cliche, but diversity is strength. I think that if you have that weirdo, green-haired, pierced, trans, non-binary kid in your IT department, instead of going, ugh, that weirdo kid, man, they're so different. I wish we could, get someone else. Think about what they're bringing to the table, the different experience, the different lens. Maybe they're a gamer, and so they understand some tech that you don't understand. Maybe they're deep into YouTube and they can help you cultivate a YouTube presence. Like every, my worst nightmare is to walk into a workplace that is completely homogenous. I don't care if it's all brown, all Asian, all whatever, all white. Any kind of homogeneity creeps me out.
Yeah.
That's why when I travel to the States and I'm in the Midwest, sometimes I'm freaked out. I'm like, well, where are the black people? Where are the brown people? It's too white here. And that's, again, what a lucky turn of history that my dad chose to come to Toronto. He could have gone to New York. He could have gone to Houston.
Yes.
The brown people had a few cities to choose from back then. And thank goodness. And because of that, I understand this. I understand that diversity is strength. And I know that those weirdos are the ones who are going to create a different viewpoint, to create looking at something differently than you are. If you're just surrounded by yes people who all see the world and have had exactly the same experiences you've had in the world, how is your company going to thrive?
Yeah.
It may thrive for that slim slice of the world, but you're not going to be able to sort of scale or expand if you're not including the whole multiplicity of humanity, you know?
Precisely, right? I mean, innovation is driven through creativity.
Exactly.
It's through that diversity of perspectives.
All these tech guys are autistic. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, no, they're all-
neurodiversity included, neurodiversity included.
Yes.
Here's the thing. What I do by walking into a room and filming someone is an extractive process. I understand what I think a lot of people in this business don't, which is that you are taking something from someone. You are literally pointing something at someone and pulling the essence of who they are out of them. I mean, it's sorcery if you really think about it, right? They have to trust you, and a lot of people don't care about that piece. They have to trust you, and you have to earn that trust. And you also, once the cameras stop rolling and you go back home with that footage, that that connection you made to them, human to human, doesn't get thrown out the window. You know, you are thinking of that person who you had that gorgeous chat with when you're cutting your show. You know what I'm saying? You were thinking about the nuances of their experiences and stuff when you're putting your story together. And a lot of time in those little pre-chats, I get incredible ideas for the interview because I'm uncovering things that I had no idea about before. So yeah, I don't think I could put it down to one big glossy moment. It's the little moments. It's the little moments of connection and the people I've met along the way. I mean, it's just been amazing. And for some reason, because I'm open and kind of goofy and a little bit of you can't really put your finger on me in terms of ethnicity. I find it's kind of like a passport to the world. Like if I'm in southern states, they think I'm Mexican.
Oh, okay.
If I'm in the Middle East, they think I'm Middle Eastern. If I'm in Italy, they think I'm Sicilian. So I do have this sort of like face that's kind of a nondescript ethnic. That helps too.
Interesting. So it's almost like that visual again helps you to navigate through a lot of these different
diversity is strength.
Yes, diversity is strength again.
Right.
Right.
Well, what are you? Are you Mexican? No, I'm actually. What is it?
What is that?
And you have a conversation, and suddenly someone's learned something, and you've connected. You know.
Yeah, and so looking back and connecting the dots, then. What advice do you have for leaders in other industries as they're shaping their own personal identity narratives? If we're talking about somebody who may be conflicted with their identity and are working in a homogenous environment.
Yes, I see what you're saying.
What advice would you have? It's a very
tough, listen, I can be all woohoo and be like, you know, let your freak flag fly and be, you know, but, you know, there's economic realities and it's a really tough time right now. And unfortunately, you know, we're seeing once again, when push comes to shove, what happens? All the diversity programs get shut down.
Yes.
All of these initiatives that look great on paper, nobody gives a shit about anymore. And it's all just vanishing. Right. So I would say, I mean, what I do is I talk to the juniors. I talk to the young people. And again, like demystifying, rolling over hierarchy and talk to the young people in your front. I think a lot of people get really high on their own supply in their corner office. Yeah. And they lose touch.
Yes.
Another thing that I've noticed, and I really think that this is a big issue, especially right now, is there's no intergenerational conversations. Like I'm 50 and I am constantly surrounded by 20 and 30-year-olds. And that is really good and important because I am keeping up with the times. I'm keeping up with the vernacular. I'm keeping up with the language, the esprit de corps. What is the zeitgeist of this moment and what is happening and how are people feeling? If you're sitting in your corner air-conditioned office, you don't know that. Yeah. And the world is passing you by. So I think my number one thing I would say, and that this is really, really important, I know I have my best friend my best guy friend,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's talked to a person under 40 for 6 months
Oh,
because he works in real estate and he's always, with his clients and whatever. It's
I
like,
see.
you've got to have young people mentors just as much as you have older people mentors. It's very, very important. I find it extremely important, and it's what makes me good at what I do because I stay in the conversation. I don't go, oh, these kids are idiots. You
Yes.
gotta, they're the future.
Yes.
Get with the program.
And so, yeah, you're connected, and it's role reversal too,
Yeah.
right? You're getting mentored. I'm hearing
Yes, absolutely.
from them too, and keeping up with the vernacular
Absolutely.
rather than staying in the corner office
Yep.
and thinking that's not necessarily a safe space,
No.
right? Well, when you think about your legacy, Michelle, your body of work, your leadership, all of it, what's your hope for what your legacy will be?
I just hope when I close my eyes at the end of it all that I've made a difference in some lives, in the sense that either they saw something I made that sparked change in their life, or maybe I mentored someone who went on to do something that they really wanted to do. I think my legacy will be the people who I met along the way and how meeting me might have helped or changed their lives. I hope. I hope so. I hope so. I mean, it's a really tough time to be a young person right now. I feel very badly for them, and I really think they need a leg up. I think COVID's really screwed a lot of people up, and especially young people. I think there's this overwhelming sense of despair and helplessness and hopelessness. And, as weird as the 90s were, our biggest problem was the president got a I mean, we were kind of blissfully ignorant
Right.
to a lot of things, and we were able to be young. And so I think if there's any legacy, it's whatever the work or whatever me as a person has done to positively impact other people's lives. Yeah.
Where can people find more?
Okay. Well, if you want to watch 21 Days to Nawroz, it's 21daystonawroz.com. If you want to keep up with me and Gay Agenda, we're on Instagram. I'm at meemama, MEEMAMA. Gay Agenda is there, gay-agenda.ca. And my website, gayagenda.ca. I think there'll be a lot more news coming in the new year in 26. And I'm around, and I'm always open to chat with people. So if anybody's listening to this and is like, I'm queer and I'm 23 and I don't know how to tell my parents, shoot me a message. I mean, I'm happy to be a camp counselor too. I'll do it all.
Michelle, thank you for honoring.
My pleasure. Truly
This
my
time.
pleasure. Thank you for asking.
and giving so much of yourself
Of course.
authentically here to and just inspire me as well, but it's also to be a beacon of hope here.
Thank you.
Right? To shine a light on. I'm hearing it's not just the work, right?
It's not just the work. You've got to send the elevator back down. You've got to cultivate the next generation. You can't be jealous and you can't be possessive about your success.
No.
You have to give it back, and you have to reinvest it in the young people. Yeah. Otherwise you're not doing it right.
Well, and spoken from the heart, and as a Parsi,
It's the Parsiness.
it's the Parsiness,
This is
and
the Farohar and the evil eye. I'm all protected. I'm covered.
Yes, and you are in the ranks of Freddie Mercury too.
Oh.
So please know
My
that,
God. That Freddie film, it's just hitting. It's going to be amazing. I don't
can't
know
wait.
what it is yet, but it's going to be amazing.
I can't wait. Well,
Thank you.